Hey everyone, why does Diablo 4 have to die in order to live? That's what we're going to talk about, along with a threat to national security. Sorry, a threat to the brand in the form of Mikuna and the crooked and broken Season 14 as a whole. New off here, so let's start with the funniest part. This genuinely made me laugh. I was literally laughing out loud. In short, Mikuna posted a long stream of consciousness. I never really understood what the actual point was. The 10-minute video I watched didn't make the essence of the issue clear. He keeps repeating that this person supported him, that person supported him, and so on. What I understood was he's probably right about something and people support him, while Blizzard is probably wrong about something. That's how it seemed anyway. The video, which is linked in the description, doesn't contain the structured sequence of key events necessary to understand the issue. Instead, there are constant attempts to establish that he's in the right. There was also something about the partner program and an invitation to BlizzCon, or rather, the lack of an invitation to BlizzCon. He talked about something for a long time, awkwardly pouring out his emotions without any structure or clear points. But then something happened that made my day. Mikuna quoted Blizzard's wording in its response, and I laughed like a horse. I laughed every time I told anyone about it. Listen to this.
I'm going to quote the exact word. They said I'm a crazy brand risk. So...
The wording itself, crazy brand risk, coming from Blizzard sounds extremely comical. Anyone familiar with this company's history over a period of more than 5 years knows that Blizzard doesn't need anyone's help destroying the reputation of what was once a legendary brand. They do an absolutely magnificent job of it all by themselves. I'd even give them the gaming industry's grand prize for the past quarter century. Nobody in game development has had a reputation like this, and nobody has fallen so spectacularly from the top as Blizzard has. The days when people were willing to work at Blizzard without hesitation for low pay just to have the company name on their resume are gone. The days when the company's name was synonymous with a gold standard of quality for gamers are also somewhere back there, 10 or more years ago. I'm not joking, it's a medical fact. If you were just born or have been flying to the stars for the last 10 years, you can look up videos about the downfall of this once legendary company. Over the last 5 years, every content creator has made videos about it, except probably some of Blizzard's partners. The second point is Mikuna himself. He's so restrained and polite that I doubt he's even capable of saying something offensive. No, not even that. Can he say something harsh without a pile of excuses, hedging, and explanations? Of course not, because this is a person for whom social approval is extremely important. And suddenly, attention...
I'm a crazy brand risk.
Угроза репутации бренда, то есть сотрудничество с Микуной создает угрозу.
Look at his video. It's made up of constant justifications and demonstrations of the fact that this person and that person support him. There are so many explanations like that I only figured out what the issue was from the description of the second video. That's a different video about the results of his dispute, which, by the way, I couldn't finish either. I'm not saying any of this as a criticism of him. That's simply his style, constantly justifying himself and referring to authorities. In my opinion, that's diametrically opposite to the image of someone or something that would normally be perceived as a threat. And suddenly, Mikuna is a threat to the brand. A threat? I'm starting to laugh again at how comical the situation is and at the level of ignorance and hypocrisy in the modern world. For anyone who didn't get it, and there certainly will be people who don't, let me say once again, briefly and clearly, I did not investigate what the conflict between Mikuna and Blizzard is actually about. I'm laughing exclusively at Blizzard's wording, which implies that the company has or still has a reputation, and that the risks to this hypothetical reputation are being caused by Mikuna. That is truly legendary. 2 words about Blizzard's partnership program. Personally, as someone who has been playing since 2000, it's obvious to me that once upon a time it was an honor. A huge honor to be called a Blizzard partner creator. But now it's exactly the opposite. How anyone can aspire to a purely visual partner hashtag that actually hurts your reputation is beyond me. Why do people in 2026 still think that the Blizzard partner badge is prestigious? It seems to me that on the contrary, being their partner is like getting yourself smeared with something unpleasant. Tell me, what exactly are you supposed to feel associated with? An avalanche of marketing and a pile of bugs that we get for an overprice? The fact that the game turned into a new beta after the expansion and that we're not only free testers but also paid for the whole banquet? No, thank you. And why Mikuna, as well as some others, are so worried about being Blizzard partners is genuinely incomprehensible. Is it that level of being uninformed, or maybe they were crushed by the same avalanche of marketing because they're young? I can understand those who got the partner badge a long time ago, simply got used to it and live on memories of former glory. But why aspire to it now? Do you guys not have mobile phones? Ladies and gentlemen, do you have phones? And what do you think about all this? Write in the comments. And now, Season 14. Let's go through my notes chronologically. Nothing pisses me off more than mobs interrupting teleport and interactions with objects. For the Barbarian, this happens before switching to the Selig build. But what about the other classes? For everyone else, it happens all the time. For the first 2 weeks, mythic item drops, including from Ubers, didn't work properly. Crafting Eldruin at the blacksmith didn't work at all, meaning it was literally impossible to obtain it from the blacksmith. Nothing valuable dropped from the Realm Walker in the seasonal theme. And then 2 weeks later, when a huge number of players were finishing the season, they fixed the main feature of the season: Mythic Rarity. In other words, during the first 2 weeks of the season, the advertised Mythic 3.0 feature simply didn't work correctly. You could have dumped all your resources without realizing that getting the mythic item you wanted through that method was impossible. Mythic items weren't highlighted in the loot filter by rarity. How many people missed their already rare mythics because of this is unknown. To make it work, you have to set it up like this. As I already said, 2 weeks later they released a patch that fixed everything, and then a couple of days later they admitted again that the iconic mythics still weren't dropping as loot. This is beyond good and evil. I can't imagine how you can screw things up this badly. In other words, nobody tested Season 14. They just shipped it as is. Battle passes and cosmetics will sell anyway. And they do. And I'll repeat it again. Nothing pisses me off more than mobs interrupting teleport and interactions with objects. A little something to break up the current wave. They brought the dome back in the pit for the boss. Excellent, thank you very much. May I ask who removed it in the first place? Did the players take it away and then you heroically overcame the problem and brought it back? Good job. Another detail. Toward the end of the season, more specifically 1 month before it ended, they made glyph leveling actually work. In other words, 8% became a real 8% instead of 4%. And the same thing happened with all the chances, 4%, 2%, and so on. Cool, thanks. They highlighted chests in Nightmare Dungeons. Excellent, a wonderful addition. But there's one little problem. This should, in theory, have been in the game at launch already. Still, genuinely thank you. It's actually useful. And while we're still on Nightmare Dungeons, a question for the developers, or rather the effective managers: why did you turn Obducite into garbage? I also noticed something else. At the start of Season 14, mob density was increased everywhere, in every activity. At least that's how it seemed to me. But there is a pretty significant side effect. It simply drives you crazy because your teleport or interactions with chests are constantly being interrupted everywhere. Moving on to the actual mechanics. The seasonal events in Helltide are good. They let you farm cinders, experience, and items, and they aren't stressful at all. If you don't like the seasonal theme with the rifts, you don't have to do them. You still get seasonal reputation from elites and bosses, no problems here. Seasonal tiers in Nightmare Dungeons and the Pit are a little different. If you're pushing your current difficulty at or near your limit, you can do the rifts in Nightmare Dungeons and the Pit without them slowing you down. For example, you go into a pit that's high for you and finish it in 5 or 7 minutes. In that case, doing the tiers can actually be useful for overall progression. If you finish in a couple of minutes or faster, the rifts will only slow you down. But again, nobody forces you to do them, although Blizzard certainly could have made them mandatory. So, in my opinion, the amount of time they take is a little unbalanced. Overall, though, it's okay. The Realm Walker event every 20 minutes at Zarbinzet. This one is obvious. During the first 2 weeks of the season, meaning the period of highest player activity, this event was completely useless. 2 weeks later, they shipped a patch and started giving a superior boss key for the event. As far as seasonal reputation and experience are concerned, the activity was as useless as it was before. The Pandemonium fragment that come from the new Uber simply weren't needed in such quantities at the start of the season. Later, they became necessary. At first, you could equip 1 mythic with the crafted tag, then you could equip as many as you wanted. So now, 1 month before the end of the Season 14, you can still equip as many mythics as you want regardless of where they came from. A week ago on the PTR, it was announced that only 1 mythic crafted in the cube would be equipable, and the patch note said so. But on the PTR, you could equip as many mythics as you wanted, regardless of their tag and regardless of their source. Confused? That's normal. In other words, that's the normal reaction of reasonable people to constantly changing rules. First there was one thing, then they changed the key principles, then they announced that they were changing them back to what they had been before, but they didn't actually change them. They simply announced that they would change them again, but didn't, and nobody knows what the actual result will be. So in the end, what will Season 15 look like, however it turns out? Not the way it was announced or will be announced, but however it ends up working. For the overall picture of Diablo 4 as a whole, what is announced or promised does not at all mean that it works, will work, or won't be changed again. Maybe you think I'm nitpicking? No. I simply remember stories like Conduit, or the whole backtracking story where they lied for a year and a half about beating it. Next, Season 14. A new boss. New is always good, but it's good when it actually makes sense. I didn't understand why we needed him. They showed us a waterfall of mythics and everything else dropping from him. Wonderful. What next? Will he have his own unique drop table? And if he does, will it actually work? And how often will it change? Seasonal reputation and chest drops. The seasonal chests give us various loot and materials. Can you do without them? If you play actively, yes. Mythic items don't drop from them at all. Superior keys were not added to them right away either. If you're playing actively, you can accumulate 100 of these chests and never think about them once. Is that good or bad? I don't know. What do I mean by playing actively? Personally, for example, I played 250 hours in Season 14. I played SSF to avoid temptations. What temptations, you might ask? Just simple temptations. 1,000 superior boss keys for Ubers cost $1. I disapprove, but I understand. The total duplication of keys, gems, runes, and other resources has been going on for many seasons. The people listing these consumables in stacks of 9,999 on new accounts are known by name. But they are constantly in the game. I'm talking about new unleveled characters with maximum amounts of gold, keys, and gems. They exist, which means it's profitable. There can be no other explanation. So sorry, I was talking about what I mean by playing actively or not. I cleared Tower 139 after about 6 hours of pushing. Going higher requires better gear and I don't want to farm anymore. That's my benchmark. 300 hours per season is active play. But there have always been people who put in 500 or even 1,000 hours per season. I used to play like that myself, 14 hours a day. I was full of enthusiasm, farming and pushing, and that was many years ago, in Diablo 3. So I completely understand people who live in the game with fire in their eyes, and I don't judge them at all. I also understand those who simply complete the seasonal journey and call it a day. Next, Season 14, and specifically the Mythic 3.0 system. Personally, I don't like it. It's unnecessary, not because of some minor detail, but as a whole. So I won't go on about the only one crafted item equipped rule. I mentioned that earlier. In my opinion, the whole idea of painting everything purple is idiotic from start to finish. You can't endlessly exploit the illusion of progression through gear. It's already become a farce, and there's at least one more expansion coming. What then? Again? Another full-priced expansion? Another total disaster? Another set of bug fixes that take multiple seasons? That's a rhetorical question. The answer is obvious. Yes, another expansion priced like a full game. Yes, everything will be broken again. And yes, it will take several seasons to fix. And that will continue until we stop paying for all of it. The bright spot is War Plans. That's an excellent addition, but it was introduced in Season 13. Highlighting chests in Nightmare Dungeons is also a great thing. But where were you for the previous 3 years when it came to highlighting chests? Cube crafting is good. No complaints there either. It's not excellent. It's sufficient for the Diablo series. Do you feel the difference? Being good is easy. Being sufficient and not excessive is difficult. Blizzard got this one right, although no matter how you do it, you can't please everyone. So I guess not everything is horrible 100% of the time. It's only horrible 50% of the time. And Blizzard's patch notes say it plainly. Nobody tested anything before Season 14. They shipped a half-finished product as is.
Смекуны создают угрозу.
But at least they talk about crazy brand risk. Sorry, I can't help myself. Thanks. I've said this before, but I'll repeat it for the newcomers. This stuff didn't work for the first half of the season. Something may still not work. And what will definitely happen? We'll see the same list 1 or 2 weeks after Season 15 starts. That's how it happened every season, and that's how it will continue. Don't believe me? Ask Blizzard's partners. Also, for the Barbarian, all two-handed nodes in expertise don't work with Whirlwind Tornado, except for the two-handed sword. When will the game finally be in good shape? The answer may surprise you. When they abandon it. It sounds paradoxical, but it's a fact. All the problems come from updates that nobody asked for. Before they can clean up the mess and bugs from one update, they ship the next one and it brings new bugs on top of the old ones. All of this happens because of the company's planned economy. There's a clear plan, something like deliver content every season. Whether it's good or bad content, or merely the illusion of content. Whether these updates are genuinely promising or deliberately doomed placeholders that only create the appearance of change. None of that matters, because all of it creates bugs. And as soon as the game stops being actively developed, a small team will remain that will gradually bring the game back into decent shape. So, a normal Diablo 4, with all mechanics, aspects, nodes, and other details actually working, won't appear until at least 6 months after they stop developing it. By developing it, I mean selling newcomers the appearance of changes that essentially aren't there. Personally, I couldn't care less about these pseudo updates and pseudo new content. All I want is a game that works as advertised. But what I want doesn't matter to anyone. Blizzard, like any other company that exists exclusively to extract profit, needs money and only money. There is a positive side to the new reality. If someone starts talking about things like legacy, they'll simply be laughed at. And just 10 years ago, believe it or not, pre-orders didn't exist. Not as a thing at all. Early access didn't exist either. Not at all. The new reality is amazing. It's amazing how quickly society as a whole has degraded. We own nothing and we're happy. One more thing about this season. They reduced the drop rate of tributes in Kurast. Excellent. Now tributes don't feel like garbage and at least somewhat resemble a valuable resource. They should cut the compass drops in the Horde too. And overall, here's the conclusion I've finally come to about the game. War plan progression isn't shared across characters, so I don't want to play multiple characters in the same season. I'm genuinely too lazy to level war plans all over again for every new character. Yes, I didn't do a review in the previous disaster of Season 13. But so the information doesn't get lost, I'll include some of it here. I won't read these out loud, I'll just show them on screen. Keep in mind this is only a small part of what didn't work or was bugged. You could also farm any type of resource through a loophole without restrictions. Well, that's about it. It turned out kind of depressing. I want a working game, not constant paradigm shifts with the 4th and 5th loot resets. DLC priced like a full game doesn't mean constant beta testing and this many bugs to me. And I'm happy about one thing. I'll never be a Blizzard partner. But anyway, if you liked it, hit like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, hit like anyway and leave a comment. Will you help promote the voice crying in the wilderness? Thanks. Thanks for watching. See you.